On Thursday night, the Houston Texans beat the Buffalo Bills 23-19. And for anybody who watched this was, of course, about the Texans defense and what they were able to do to Josh Allen and that Bills offense. They wind up generating 3 turnovers. They register 8 sacks. They get the big stop at the end, despite giving up a huge play on 4th and 27 on the hook and ladder. They're able to get the stops when they need to get them. And now I think we can kind of look at the Houston Texans as a team going forward that can be a real threat that's hitting a critical stretch of the schedule. This is the first one, but after this, they go to Indianapolis and then to Kansas City. And we'll know a lot more about the Texans and whether or not where they're at 5-5 makes them truly dangerous in about 17 days after they're done with this 2-game stretch. Again, at 5-5, they got a shot to get in the playoffs. At 7-5, they would be a real threat to get in the playoffs. And I think this is the type of team that can win when you get into a playoff setting. Here's why. On the defensive side of the ball, they have big-time players at multiple levels, and they are stacked at the premium spots. Will Anderson, one of the best players in all of football now, a real defensive player of the year candidate. And then you have opposite him a guy who would probably be the number 1 edge rusher for more than half of the NFL teams. That's Danielle Hunter. So you've got Hunter and you've got Anderson on the edges. And then outside of that, you've got Derek Barnett, you've got Tim Settle, you've got Sheldon Rankins. You've got a crew of guys that can make plays. And so this is a dominant defensive front. Again, a dominant defensive front that generated 8 sacks. And then on the back end of that defense, the anchors are the corners. Derek Stingley, who's probably one of the top 2 or 3 corners in all of football. He's right up there with Patrick Surtain at the top of the league. And then opposite him, you have Kamari Lassiter. And Lassiter is probably a top 20-ish corner. So, you're looking at it's tough to get open against them. If it's tough to get open against them, you have the quarterback holding the ball, which is what happened last night. And if the quarterback's holding the ball against that defensive front, the inevitable happens. Now we look at what they can do offensively and how much that's going to change when they get C.J. Stroud back in the lineup next week in Indianapolis. And this is a lot's going to be on Stroud now to try to regain the form of 2 years ago and be the player that I think everybody knows that he can be. We've seen flashes of it this year in the new Nick Caley offense. It does look like some things are starting to come together on the offensive side of the ball. They have a bona fide number 1. We know that in Nico Collins. But there are 3 rookies that I think are going to be key to C.J. Stroud regaining form and the Texans reaching their ceiling. Ariante Ursary at left tackle, who's been pretty good. He got banged up a little bit last night, but he's been pretty good. You've got Jaden Higgins at receiver, who I think is a very legitimate number 2 now to Collins. You see some of the things, some of the young player things last night, some of the trouble he had keeping his feet in bounds on certain plays, but he's certainly got big time ability, and I think they expect him to continue to ascend. And then the third rookie would be Woody Marks. This has been a weird year for the Texans at running back. They, of course, lost Joe Mixon back in the summer. Then they're relying on Nick Chubb, who is definitely past his prime. Woody Marks looks to me like the type of player that can be a difference maker for them down the stretch as well. So those 3 rookies are really key to where they are offensively. Marks, Higgins, and Ursary. But again, like if they can get that offense, if those 3 guys can help C.J. Stroud regain the form of a couple of years ago, this could be a truly dangerous team going in the playoffs. And we should know where they're at after the next couple of weeks based on who they're playing. They're in Indianapolis on November 30th. They're in Kansas City on December the 7th.